This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. And do I presume correctly that GoToMeeting records both audio and video?
It does.
Okay. So we should refrain from scratching and what have you, unless we want to have it memorialized for posterity.
Yes.
I recorded one hearing I did for Gold Bar because they didn't have any of these programs. And so I said, I'll use my license and I'll set the thing up. And then I had to get the recording to them because it's, of course, their responsibility to keep the recording. I discovered it was too big to email. So then I went to the store and bought a thumb drive, and I came back and dumped it on a thumb drive and mailed it to them. Now, I know some cities don't want anybody to connect a thumb drive to their system. So I don't know, I sent it to them. I have no idea what they're going to do with it, but. Okay, let's see, Ms. Tawana's a city employee, right? Yes, okay. Okay. The lady who just came on who has the ear buds, you don't have a name on your screen. You apparently didn't put a name down when you logged in. It would help. I can't hear you, of course, because you're muted, but it would help me as we go along if I had your name there so I knew who you were. Ms. Hildy, I have a question for you before we start. I know it's 10:01, but bear with me. We're recording anyway. In Zoom, there is a little thing that shows up on the bottom of the screen that if a person wants to be recognized, they can click on that, raising your hand. Is there some equivalent in GoToMeeting?
I'm not aware of anything like that. I think if someone would like to make a comment or to speak, maybe we ask them to send a message to everyone saying, I'd like to speak or something like that. I wish there was that tool in GoToMeeting, but unfortunately we don't have it.
Okay, that's fine. I don't think we need to send a chat message. I'm going to try and stay out of the chat process here if I can. So far, there's a relatively small number of us, so I'm going to ask that everybody have their microphone turned off unless you're actively participating. But if something's going on and you feel an absolute urge to get into the verbal part of it, just unmute yourself and say, excuse me, Mr. Examiner, and we'll deal with it. May I ask the woman who still doesn't have a name on her screen? Can you tell me?
Yes, my name is Aurora Merchant. I'm trying to figure out how to add my name. I apologize. I've never used this WebEx or
The first time I did it was yesterday, so I'm not very far ahead of you. So
I got you. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out so I can add it, but my name is Aurora Merchant.
Aurora. Okay. I'll try to remember that.
Thank
Okay.
you.
It's 10:03. Can we, before we, whoops, okay. Ms. Merchant, did you notice that there was an email address there for you to use to let the city know that you want to be a party of record? I'll mention it again as we get into the introduction, so don't worry about it right now.
No, I did not. Sorry. Thank you.
The hearing will please come to order. Good morning. I'm John Galt, the Sammamish hearing examiner. It is now about 10:03 a.m. on May the 29th, 2020. And I want to welcome you to today's open record hearing. The item on our docket today is a shoreline substantial development permit application. The applicant is Darrell, middle initial W, Eastman. The file number is SSDP 2019-378. And Mr. Eastman is seeking approval for construction of an 80-foot long dock to be shared by some number of property owners. I'm purposefully stating that in a rather vague way. My introductory remarks today will be longer than normal, and I apologize for that, but they're necessary because we're holding this hearing remotely due to the restrictions necessitated by the current COVID-19 pandemic. I apologize for the length of these remarks, but I do believe they're necessary to preserve everybody's due process rights. Today's hearing is being conducted remotely using a software program called GoToMeeting. People may participate in the hearing by computer with audio-visual capabilities or by telephone. This hearing is being recorded by a system that's built into the GoToMeeting program. The system records both audio and video, so all computer attendees need to keep that in mind. I'm the presiding officer, but city staff, I believe it's Ms. Hildy, is serving as what GoToMeeting calls the organizer. The organizer controls when participants' audio is turned on, or at least she can turn it on or turn it off for you. You can also turn your own on and off. She's able to see a list of all the telephone participants, I believe. I have asked Ms. Hildy to keep my audio on throughout the hearing and to keep everybody else's audio off until I have recognized them. And that's so that I won't hear any side comments that are not intended to be public, to help improve the clarity of the audio record so that we're not all talking over each other, and to best control the flow of the hearing. As I've indicated, participants can control whether their video image is displayed during the hearing. I do ask, in fact, I will insist that those who are testifying do need to turn on their video if it's available. I recognize that Mr. Ashley has apparently a computer problem of some sort and is having to use a telephone to participate. I'm not sure. He also mentioned before we started that he had his computer, but it wasn't working right. I don't know whether he'll be able to get his image on the screen for us. Each witness is a party of record. Attendees may become a party of record even if they do not testify. Now, we normally have a form available in the hearing room where you may sign in to become a party of record. You enter your name, your mailing address, and/or your email address. That's obviously not possible in this remote setting. Therefore, I ask that either during or after the hearing, each witness and each attendee who wishes to be a party of record send an email to Ms. Hacci Her address is lhacci@sammamish.us. And her address was also typed on that notice that was displayed on the screen before we actually started the hearing. There was, as there always is, an opportunity for anyone to submit written comments at any time prior to today's hearing. Any comments received in that standard fashion have already been entered into the record as exhibits. So they've been marked by the city to enter in the record as exhibits. In an in-person hearing, attendees may also submit written materials in person during the hearing. That obviously cannot easily happen in this remote hearing format. Therefore, as we go along, I will ask each participant whether he or she has any written materials that they would have submitted if this hearing were held in person. If anyone indicates a desire to do so, I will keep the hearing record open to provide an opportunity for attendees to submit written comments after the hearing. If we need to hold the record open, I'll explain the process at the end of our hearing. A shoreline substantial development permit is a type 4 application under the city's classification of land use applications. Type 4 applications require a pre-decision hearing to be held by the examiner. That's what we're doing this morning. And my neighbors decided to blow dry their lawn, so I hope that sound doesn't bother you too much. Anyway, I'm required after the hearing is over to issue a decision within 10 days of the close of the record or the close of the hearing if we do have to leave it open. My decision will be a final decision for the city, subject to the right of reconsideration and appeal to the State Shorelines Hearings Board. I include a brief paragraph explaining the reconsideration process and another paragraph explaining the appeal procedures in the written decision, so I won't take any of our time to go over that this morning. I'm required to base my decision primarily on the general review criteria that are found in section 20.10.200 of the city code and the additional review criteria for shoreline substantial development permits that are found in section 25.08.0 of the municipal code, as well as considering other relevant provisions and requirements of the city code. Officially adopted city plans and policies, state law and rule, and judicial precedent, all apply to the facts that are disclosed by the documents and testimony in the record. I reserve the right to take official notice of applicable case law, provisions of state laws and rules, the Sammamish Municipal Code, the City Comprehensive Plan, and other adopted city policies. Are there any questions regarding hearing procedures? Are there any objections on jurisdictional grounds or concerns regarding conflict of interest? Hearing none.
Sir, I have a quick question. I'm sorry, sir. Steve Goldblum. I apologize for ending the meeting about 2 minutes late. Is this the Eastman dock case?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. No questions.
Thank you. Okay, I made a brief site familiarization visit on May the 23rd. So I am generally familiar with the site and with its surroundings. However, and this is a however statement that I make in every hearing where I have made a site visit, my site visit is not a substitute for your testimony. I go to the site simply so that I have a mental image of the area and it helps me understand what you're testifying to. I do not go to the site so that I can appear in front of myself in my own hearing and testify to myself about what I saw. So the important thing for everybody to remember is if there are important things about the site and the surroundings that you think I need to know in order to be able to reach a properly reasoned decision, you do need to let me know about that through testimony or through documents that you might enter during our hearing. The city staff has gone through the materials that have been generated during the application review process, and they have identified 26 documents that they believe will have substantive and or procedural value to me as the hearing examiner. They've marked these documents as exhibits 1 through 26. They have all been available on the city's website for, I think, probably the last couple of weeks at least. I herewith enter into the record of this hearing pre-filed exhibits 1 through 26. And I would note for just the attendees, in case you see me looking off to my right as we go through the hearing, I'm doing the GoToMeeting on my laptop, and I have brought up the exhibit list on my desktop computer, and so I can look at exhibits as we go along. You may have to give me a second to flip from one to another, but I'll do the best I can to keep up with you on testimony. And if I can't keep up with you, I'll ask you to slow down. Our hearing sequence of speaking is the standard one that we always use. And that will be, we will first take direct testimony, then we'll have an opportunity for rebuttal testimony, and then the hearing closes with optional closing statements. The direct testimony and the rebuttal testimony are heard in the same speaking order, and that is that the applicant will go first, followed by the city staff, followed by any members of the public who wish to be heard. When we get to closing statements, the public doesn't get an opportunity for a closing statement, and the order is flipped so that the staff would have the first opportunity for closing and the applicant the second and last. You'll note in that sequence that our applicant testifies first and at least has the opportunity to testify last. And that's appropriate because the burden of proof rests with the applicant. It is up to the applicant to show by a preponderance of the evidence that his application complies with the criteria for approval. The applicant can meet that burden through documents, through testimony, or any combination of the both. Okay, that concludes the introductory comments. We can begin with our direct testimony. We start with our applicant, Mr. Ashley. If somebody could either unmute him or if he could unmute himself. There he is. I'm still not able to get us a visual of you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I don't have a camera on my computer, so.
Okay. Well, I'm going to trust you, Mr. Ashley. You've appeared in front of me representing applicants doing these doc hearings lots of times. You know what I expect, and I expect you to now raise your right hand.
Yes, sir.
And I will administer the oath to you. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. For the record, please state your name and how to spell it.
My name is Gregory Wayne Ashley, Gregory Wayne Ashley.
Thank you. Go ahead. You're here to represent Mr.
Yes, sir. This is a community pier. It's designed to accommodate up to 10 boat lifts. However, it's actually a community pier for seven upland homeowners. We're allowed to do up to 700 square feet, and we've designed this pier amazingly to come at 699. So we just squeaked under the limit. It does meet the applicable setbacks, and that it is more than 15 feet from each property line. It extends no more than 80 feet in length from ordinary high water mark. So basically, it's just a standard joint use pier that we designed to meet all the applicable codes. At this time, we're going to install 2 boat lifts with this particular application. In the future, any homeowners who wish to install boat lifts will have to get permits on their own for those. So that's pretty much in a nutshell what the project is.
Have you looked at the list of exhibits?
Yes, sir, I have.
Okay. You've noted then, as I noted, that there are 2 exhibits plan set. There's an exhibit 15, which is a plan set dated June 25th, 2019. And there's an exhibit 24, which is a plan set dated February the 5th of 2020. If I recall correctly, the staff report says that your client wants me to approve exhibit 15. The city staff wants me to approve exhibit 24. Would you talk to us about that?
Yes, sir. The preferred location of the pier would be, there's a little promontory that sticks out on the shoreline. The preferred location would be to the left of that little promontory. However, calculating the first 30 feet more than the high water mark, any fingers or things of that nature have to be at least 30 feet more than the high water mark. So when we calculated 30 feet more than the high water mark, with the pier to the left, which would be, I guess that was plan A, we're measuring 30 feet from where the pier starts. And so we think we meet that 30-foot requirement. However, the city was saying the 30 feet should be measured from the tip of that promontory out, not from where we were placing the pier. So that's why the city would prefer us to move the pier over to the tip of the promontory. I was hoping that we could be measuring from where the pier starts, not from the promontory. So whichever way you rule is the way we're going to go. Does that make sense?
It does. It looks like, I'm trying to manipulate this image as I talk to you. It looks like in exhibit 24, the pier ends up ending right at a tree.
The tree is actually a little bit set back, but yes, it will end up being at that tree. It won't interfere with the tree. The tree won't really interfere with the beginning of the headwalk, but it will just be, a little more difficult to carry things on and off the pier when it's at the tip of the promontory.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have anything else that you wish to testify about here at the start?
No, sir. I think that covers the gist of the project.
Okay. The staff in Exhibit 1 has recommended that I approve the application with 6 conditions. Does your client have any comments regarding the conditions that have been recommended?
No, sir. Those are pretty standard conditions that the staff puts on all these pier projects, so we have no problem meeting those.
Thank you. I may have questions for you, but I will wait until we've heard from everybody who wishes to testify first. Okay, we can mute Mr. Okay, he's already done it. Thank you. Mr. Singh, am I correct that you're going to be the lead spokesperson for the city?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? Swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. For the record, please state your name and tell us how to spell it.
Jasveer Singh, Jas, V as in Victor, IR, last name Singh, SINGH.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Staff has no comments to add to the record. And staff just noticed one typo in the staff report, and I would like to mention that.
Okay. Tell me where.
Okay. So on staff report, page number, let's see, page number 6 of 8. At table 1, the proposal should be where it states exhibit 24. That one should be exhibit number 15. And it's only for 4 upland residents.
Now, Mr. Ashley testified that it was designed for 7.
Oh, it's only for 4.
Thank you. Okay, now, this is where the process maybe gets a little bit interesting, because I want to ask if there's anybody who wishes to be heard. Mr. Goldblum is raising his hand. I know Ms. Beatty is a city employee, as is Ms. Hildy and Ms. Hacci. I believe Ms. Tawana is also a city employee. Did we lose Ms. Merchant? Did we lose her? I don't have her on the screen. Well, I have somebody that has no name up in the corner. Well, anyway, let's start with the one that we do have that's here. We've got a picture, we got a mic on. Mr. Goldblum, would you raise your right hand, please? Mr. Goldblum?
Yes,
Oh, okay, your picture froze there for a minute. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I swear I do.
Thank you. For the record, please tell us your name.
My name is Stephen Goldblum. I'm a resident of 19635 Northeast 33rd and 1/6 undivided interest of the property next door to the property, the Eastman's property. I'm familiar with the process we're in. Outside of stating my name, should I just speak, or do you want to ask me questions, or how does it work,
Okay.
sir?
Well, usually you just go ahead and speak, but since you've said of the property next door, is that the property to the north or to the south?
North. North.
North, okay.
Yeah, and if the connection is not
Go
good,
ahead.
please tell me. I'll just repeat myself. I'm on these Zoom things. Thank you for having it this way.
You're welcome. Your image is freezing up all the time, but your voice is audible throughout, so just go ahead.
Okay. So there was just to revisit the comment that originally Mr. Ashley had communicated. It was for 7 homeowners, and then the gentleman stated that it was for, I made a correction that it was for 4 homeowners. I'd like to explain my conversations with Mr. Eastman and my conversations with Dwayne Baker, who owned the property before the Eastmans. I've been living in the area since 2009. You may remember that we started to try to get a dock back then, and in 2018 we did get a dock, and we have one next door, and we went through the process, and I'm familiar with what's happening here. So I think it's really a big issue that's just been brought up, the 7 versus 4. There's we have a neighborhood right next door with 6 homes with an undivided interest, and we had to reduce our dock size to fit, so we can barely get 4 boats onto it. And there's 6 homes who are certified 1/6 owners who really have access to the beach, but we had to come up with a situation among us, the 6 different non-related parties, to make it so 4 boats could fit at the dock, and that's where we are with that. So that's some background. When I spoke to James Eastman, my understanding from my conversation with him was that they were going to try to put a dock up for 6 boats. And the reason for the 6 boats that I had understood was because the 4 that were mentioned, that the 4 homeowners that are able to use that area, they actually have a pass-through. Those 4, they don't own the property there. The way I understand it is James Eastman owns the property. There's Brad and Roger. I can't think of the other names of the gentlemen. I can get their names, but there are people who own 4 homes on a street nearby, that have the right to use the land and get through to the water to put their boats out on a buoy out there if they want to. James explained to me that he not only wants to accommodate the property that he bought, he does have a home. I think it may be in Sammamish, I'm not sure. It was for 6. 6 was a massive amount for that area in terms of the number of boats. But I said, well, we could probably organize it with 6, but we only need 2 because I really want to make sure for the 4 people that don't have this rights that we accommodate them if we can. And I've heard subsequent to this that from my neighbors, may or may not be true. I can't substantiate this, but what I've been hearing is that there are Airbnbs that are going to be using the boats down there and using the docks down there, and that the homeowners, there's only really one owner of the property, and that the homeowners, that when Mr. Eastman came and bought the property, now instead of having just the 4 families that have the rights for pass-through, Mr. Eastman has 2 or 3 brothers or sisters, all have which families. All those folks are down on the shore, and we welcome them, and they're neighbors, and we're great. But you got 4 families joined by now. One person owns the property, who has another 3 or 4 families coming in. Maybe they own the property together, maybe they don't, I don't know. And now we're going to have Airbnbs, from what I've understood, for some extra dock space. So I'm all in for the Eastmans getting a dock. I want that on the record. I want it to be positive. I want good neighborly relationships. But anything more than 6, I don't know how. It's just too many boats. There's just too much going on. And I don't know why one person needs 6 boats. For the 4 people that are passed through, I'd like to see them helped. But I don't know where all these, I don't know what we're talking about here with 7 homeowners. I'm not aware of more than 1 homeowner is associated with the property who has maybe a deal with some of his relatives to come and use it. And I just think that the city needs to look really closely at the number of spaces, because our 6 houses who own it, we couldn't figure out how to get more than 4. And it's not about us or them. It's really about the area accommodating boats. And there's just too much boats and too much traffic with that many boats. 8 boat, and in the paper that I read in the beginning said either there was a number of 8 boat lifts with 10 places. There's a paper in there that I read that has different numbers than we're all speaking about right here. Maybe it was an October 16th document of 19. I think it was 8 plus 1, 8 spaces plus 1. So I didn't know what the number was, and obviously it got clarified today. So I just think that the city has, again, that's my communication.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Goldblum.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Merchant, I see you back with an image. Couldn't get the name on there, could you?
Sorry about that. I will. I was working on one thing and then I was trying to get back to the screen, couldn't. So
You wish to testify?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you raise your right hand, please? You swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. There's a lag in your signal. I think I'll not look at you because it's a little disconcerting to hear the words coming and then the mouth moving at a different time. So
no, totally understand.
For the record, please tell us your name and how to spell it, and then go ahead with your comments.
My name is Aurora Merchant, which is A-U-R-O-R-A. Last name Merchant, M-E-R-C-H-A-N-T. And I actually live in Eagle Shores, which is basically right across the street from our joint use parcel that we have a joint use dock as well, which is 2 parcels to the south of the bill. What we have been concerned with, and my fiance, who's an owner of the property here, he's actually owned it since 2009, and I've actually lived here since around 2004. And recently there have been at least 2, if not 3 additional docks that have been added to an area that is technically a residential recreational area, but it's not a buildable lot. There is no residence that can. The lot itself cannot have a residence on it. And according to the Washington State, when I looked up the Washington State Constitution, it states Section 17, if you will, it says that basically water lake of navigability is to be owned by the Department of Natural Resources, and that is, you have to have permission from the Department of Natural Resources in order to use the water beneath the actual line of ordinary high water mark.
Excuse me, hang on a minute. Is anybody but me hearing a beeping sound?
I've been
I'm
hearing
also
it too.
hearing a beeping sound. I'm not sure what that is.
Anybody know where it's coming from?
The audio,
No.
the audio for me is, I'm very interested in Aurora's communication from Eagle Shores. I have maybe 60% of it on a good day. I between the in and out and the sound. I'm not. If it's recorded and you guys have it, great, but I'm not getting it.
It's breaking up some for me too.
Can you hear me better if I just get really close like this?
That's the beeping that I'm wondering about.
I'm hearing
Let
that.
me
I'm hearing that.
see if I can call in, I guess. Where?
Your voice is not really clear.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to get my voice to work better. I apologize.
And I think what's happening, Aurora, with no only help, I think you're getting a text on the device, and then every time a text comes in, the beep happens. I'm just volunteering for the court. I don't know if that's true, but I think that's happening. Or an email.
It's possible. I'm not sure why, for some reason, you're unable to hear me. Because I can hear you guys just fine. So I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing, because I'm using my regular computer.
I think we can hear you. I can hear you now very clearly. It
Me
was
too.
your testimony.
Okay. So I'll try to start again. I apologize. But my main issue has to do with the fact that there is not an actual abutting residential owner that the dock is being tied to. Because at this point, when you say an upland property, none of the four lots that are supposed to be attached to this dock are actually abutting the actual property at all. Closest is the actual owner, which is at 3206 East Lake Sammamish, which is still over roughly 300 feet even from that parcel. The other three parcels look like they are to be built parcel, like they're very large parcels that were recently environmental and have been changed over from, and somehow one of the parcels in particular, there's two that are owned by CLM Holdings, one of which would take, when I did the MapQuest, 6 miles to walk to from, if they were to try to walk to it or to drive. It is a 55-minute walk. There is no parking, and this is one of the biggest concerns we have. Is I've seen in front of our accidents. And we live, like I said, directly across the street. And so for me, where are they going to park at? These people cannot just walk down. These houses are also, yeah, they're technically upland. I'll give you that. They're not an upland residential owner. They definitely don't meet the definition per RCW 79.105.430 that says that the dock cannot be sold or leased separately from an upland residence, not a residential lot. They don't have an upland residence because to be an upland residence, they would literally have a lot that is abusing. It'd have to be an abusing residential owner.
Ms. Marchant, can you not hear me?
We can hear
I
you.
apologize. No, I couldn't.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to ask you a question, and I tried to interject politely, and you just kept going and going and going. So I kept getting louder and louder and louder.
I apologize.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of seconds back, you read a citation to an RCW section, and
Yeah.
I was not able to write it down as fast as you were saying it. So would you tell me that citation again, please?
Yes, RCW 79.105.430. And then I also have a WAC as well that I would like to mention.
And what's that one?
It's WAC 332.
I'm sorry, your voice broke up.
Sorry,
Your voice broke
WAC.
up.
It's a 332 30144 section 2A. And this defines what an abutting residential owner is. It states that the owner of property physically bordering on aquatic land and either used for single-family housing or multi-family residential housing not exceeding 4 units per lot. That's associating the allowance ENR be able to use the waters without a lease and under the rules associated with the use being able to be either leased or sold. It has to be tied to the residence. And so if there is no residence for the use to be tied to, then how can we possibly it's not going to be over flooded with parking issues? Public
Ms. Merchant, Ms. Merchant, I need to tell you that your voice is just not coming through well at all.
Okay, I can try to
I
call
don't
in.
know what I don't know what we can do about it, but
Your Honor, Your Honor, if you could ask her to just dial in on the phone. If she dials in on the phone.
Let me grab my phone. I apologize. I'll see if I can call in. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, that would be the best choice.
Your Honor, just to offer some help, please ask her to turn her sound off on the computer. We're going to get blown up when she turns on her phone. It'll be a really loud screeching.
hopefully
What's the phone number you're dialing? Can you guys give that to me quickly? I apologize.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
say again?
What's the phone number to dial in?
Yes, just give me a quick second and let me pull that up for you.
Thank you.
The phone number is 1-224-501-3412. And I will give you the access code here when you're ready.
Okay, 1 second. I apologize. Right.
No problem.
What is the access code?
405-134-453.
It's having me do it again. I apologize. I'm just writing it down now.
problem.
405
Okay,
1
405
4 4.
134 453.
I don't know if you can see the chat, but I
Looks
also
like-
posted the number there too.
I had a call or two on the screen for about 10 seconds and then it dropped off. I don't know exactly what that meant.
So 405 134453.
That is correct.
And make sure your sound is off too, as Mr. Goldblum mentioned. Otherwise, we'll have a terrible echo. You might want to be ready, Kelly.
On the computer, you just want to
Yeah,
mute
I'm
yourself.
ready.
Okay.
Okay, can you guys hear me here? I'm going to disable the other one now. I apologize. I
Yes.
wanted to make sure I had both.
Ms.
Much better.
Merchant, we can hear you just clearly.
Okay, perfect. Basically, I apologize, I'm trying to find the audio controls on my computer now. Okay, basically the question that I had has to do with them being residential property owners, because they are not, the lot it is a parcel that is even taxed as a recreational parcel. It is not actually taxed and it is an unbuildable lot. While it is residential, it's still unbuildable, and there is no residence to tie it to. So when you say an upland residential abutting property owner, which are the only ones that are allowed to use the lake under the Department of Natural Resources restrictions, they have to be an abutting residential property owner, which under WAC 332-30-144, Section 2A, it defines abutting residential property owner is the owner of record of property physically boarding on aquatic land and is either used for single-family housing or for multifamily residence, not exceeding 4 units per lot. None of the lots that are associated, the 4 owners are not the 4 easement owners. They are 4 randomly lots that are 2 of which are in a different township, or I should say, are a different section of the same township. It's different sections. One of which is at least over 2 acres, which I'm assuming the reason that most likely going to now be buildable land. It used to be considered environmentally protected, but it now is going to be buildable. But these lots are not in any way connected, so they're not. I'm sure this is why they're asking for a 2 use limit rather than a 3 or more, because they're not. The lots are not contiguous in any manner. In fact, 2 are owned by a corporation, CLM Holdings, one of which is basically 95,000 square feet, another of which is, I apologize, another of which is 418,794 square feet, basically 9.61 acres. And that's over half a mile away from the actual lot. And therefore, I don't know how that's even considered upland. Well, I mean, technically it is upland of it, but that would then mean, where do we stop as far as drawing the line of the use, especially when the owner is allowed to change the use thing? When I contacted the planner just requesting, well, what are the limitations as far as the use agreement? Or is it going to be limited just to 4 owners? Will they have to be the actual physical owners? And he told me to contact Mr. Gregory, which I would imagine this would be something that would be controlled by the permit in the city, not by the individual that wants to use or lease the dock. Because at this point, it sounds to me more to be like a marina, because you could literally move it to any house in all of Sammamish and just say it's upland from that lot. It's not at all contiguous, and you can't even, one of them you literally have to actually drive around and back out to 202, then come down into Sammamish to get back to. And that's the largest parcel where you could easily build multiple homes. I'm assuming that's what the property was purchased for, to be perfectly honest, because it only has a very small house on it for the size of the lot. The one that is the largest lot is the one that's the 202-506-9009. That's owned by CLM Holdings, and that one is 9.61 acres. And so if they can change the use agreement at any time and build houses on that land, then there could be multiple users. And if there's unlimited number of lifts, then that would really get in the way of the actual other owners that currently have docks, as far as even trying to moor or even access in, and the residents that live right to the south or the north.
I understand fully what you're saying. Thank you, Ms. Merchant. Is there a member of the public who has not spoken who wishes to do so? The record will show.
You don't get 2 turns, do you, sir?
you get a turn during rebuttal, but not
Thank
right
you.
now. Yep,
No problem.
hold your thought.
Cool.
I have, frankly, a number of questions, most of them probably for Mr. Ashley or his client, and unfortunately, his client chose not to participate. So we'll see. Let's see. I had my first questions related to Exhibit 26. This is where things probably get a little slow because I have to find it. Mr. Singh, the application was filed on July 25th of last year, but it was not complete until October 16th of last year. Is that right? That they had to submit some additional material to make it complete, and that didn't happen until October 16th?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Singh, did anybody file an appeal from the Cepa threshold determination?
Oh, no, sir.
No. Thank you. There is a requirement in the code for which there's no penalty for not complying with it, but nevertheless it's there, that says that applications like this are supposed to be decided within 120 days of the date that the application is filed in a complete fashion. October 16th of last year, which was the date it was complete, through May 29th of this year, which is the day we're having our hearing, is clearly greater than 120 days. Were there what I call timeouts in that time period when the 120-day clock was not running? Or are we just simply beyond 120 days? Mr. Singh.
Yes, so the review clock, I think stops when the review for the application is completed.
No, the review clock, well, that may be your review clock, but the 120 days is for a decision.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to argue that with staff today, but if you go look at your code, it's 120 days to issue a decision, not for the staff to write its staff report. So are we beyond 120 days?
Technically, yes.
Yes, okay. Mr. Ashley, are you still with us? Mr. Ashley? You want to turn your mic on?
You got to turn me on. There you go. Yes, I'm still here, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to turn me on because I'm on the phone.
Oh, I see. Okay. Sorry about that. Is your client willing to waive the 120-day clock?
Yes, sir, he is.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to clarify a couple of things on the joint use project, if I may.
Wait until I'm through.
Or I can wait. Yes, sir.
Thank you. On the staff report, the one exhibit that I have in paper, so I can have it. I'm much quicker at finding things on paper. Okay, I think we've answered that one already, so we can skip that. On page 1 of the staff report, down in the section on key dates, it lists November 12th of 2019 as the date the notice of application was issued, and November 12th through December 3rd as the public comment period. But the actual notice of application, which is Exhibit 26, says that it was November 7th, not the 12th, and that the comment period ran from November 7th through on November 28th. I rely on the actual document as opposed to the staff report. Mr. Singh?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. On page 4, let me see what I asked on page 4. Page 4 and 5. Okay. Page 4, up at the top of the page, the paragraph that begins as shown, says that it's for 2 freestanding boat lifts without canopies. On the next page, in the second paragraph under Analysis Municipal Code, it says, and a boat lift with canopy are lawfully permittable. So which has the applicant asked for? With canopy or without canopy?
Without canopy.
Without canopy, okay. Let's see. Okay, condition 3. Keep your finger there on page 5. And condition 3 says that a building permit for the project must be in substantial conformance with Exhibit 15. But page 5 says that the staff is recommending that I approve Exhibit 24, not 15. Which is right? What is the staff recommending that I approve?
Exhibit 15.
15?
15, yes.
The original,
Staff is not recommending, this is a real baby.
I need to swear you in.
Okay.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay. For the record, state your name and spell it, please.
My name is Avril Beatty, A, V as in Victor, R-I-L, last name Beatty, B as in boy, A-T-Y.
Okay, thank you. Exhibit 24 or Exhibit 15, which is the staff recommending?
Staff is recommending approval of Exhibit 24, which shows the 30-foot setback between the first L of the dock and the ordinary high water mark, as is measured in a typical buffering when you don't have a linear property line.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to toss this one out. Mr. Ashley, you might be the one to answer it. Maybe somebody on the staff can, I'm not sure. The address for Mr. Eastman. This is obviously more a procedural thing than a substantive thing. The staff report says that his address is in Peoria, Arizona. Exhibits 2 and 6 say that his address is in Renton, Washington. Which is the correct address for your client?
I use the Renton, Washington address. I'm not aware of the Peoria one.
Okay, we'll use Renton. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'll leave the big question for last. Exhibit 6 on page 5, section 6E, that's the JARPA form. And on page 7 at section 8A of the same JARPA form says that material cutting is going to be done on shore. Exhibit 1, page 5 says that there's going to be no construction on shore and it's all going to be done from a barge. Which is right? Mr. Ashley, you're probably the best one to answer that since you're the
Yes, sir.
design.
The construction will be done from shore. Pile driving will take place from a platform on the water, but the actual construction of the pier itself will, and material will be cut on shore.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the applicant believes, apparently, I've got to change screens here, that they can put 10 boat lifts on this dock. I'm very confused by the information regarding the number of proposed users and hang on a minute. The number of boat lifts that people think they can put on the dock.
Yes, sir. It was a confusing chain of events. I could clarify that for you if you like.
Well, let me finish explaining what my concerns are.
Yes, sir.
I'm trying to, whoops, hit it twice and it shut itself closed. I'm trying to go to the shoreline programs, development regulations for docks, and it's taking me a while to get there. Okay. The record has a recorded joint use agreement.
Yes, sir.
It's for 10 people, 10 property owners to use the dock, plus 4 additional parties who have an easement. And it indicates that easement owners may also be able to use the dock if the square footage of the dock is greater than 675 square feet. Well, you're asking for 699. So as a practical purpose, the recorded shared use agreement would allow 14 property owners to use the dock. The recorded agreement lists 10 tax account numbers. I have elected to this point not to the King County IMAP program and find out where those all are. That's going outside the record, and I'm reluctant to do that. But I have not a clue where these 10 parcels are. The last 4 digits of those are 9117, 9138, 9084, 9075, 9097, 028, 9027, 9048, 9026, 9012. I don't know where they are. That's a recorded document in the King County system. And that's Exhibit 16 in the record. Then there's another joint use agreement. That one is Exhibit 18. It's dated about 3 months after the first one. It's not recorded. It uses somewhat the same language. It's much shorter. Doesn't talk about the easement users at all. Doesn't acknowledge that that easement exists. And by the way, the easement, according to the title report that's in the record, the easement was executed back in 2005. And I have not looked it up, so I don't know what it says. But the September joint use agreement is only for 4 parcels: 9075, 9027, 9012, all of which were part of the 10 in the original one, and 9009, which is a new parcel located somewhere. I don't know where it is. I am very confused about what this applicant thinks he's asking for. I noticed that all of the properties are owned by, except for the beach property, apparently, they're all owned by LLCs. And Mr. Darrell Eastman, our applicant, is the managing member of all of those LLCs. He's the only person who signed the original joint use agreement. He's the only person who signed the second joint use agreement. The city staff seems to have processed this with the belief that they're relying on the second joint use agreement. But Mr. Eastman hasn't revoked the first one, nor has he recorded the second one. So you got 2 joint use agreements for the same piece of property, one legally recorded and the other one not. There seems to be this notion that you can put 10 boat lifts on the dock. I'm not sure that the code says you can. I think that is questionable. The staff also says in passing in the staff report, or actually it's not in the staff report, it's in one of your review comments. I think it was your pre-application review comment. Says that, well, maybe this really ought to be treated as a beach club. But they then drop that. And I'm trying to understand, how can this be a joint use dock? Why isn't this a beach club? How, you've got not one of these parcels adjoins the beach property. They're all over the map. They could be, you could, the way this is arranged, you would be asking me to approve a joint use dock for people who lived east of 228th Avenue. It would make as much sense as what's being proposed here. I think Mr. Ashley must have called his client and said, you better get on the phone or on the system, because I see James Eastman down here. It's not Darrell Eastman, but I'm presuming they're related. And there's one other phone caller that's joined in. So the number is growing here. But I'm just very confused about this. And I will be honest and say that I'm not sure that the code reads in a way where you can get 10 boat launches on a dock, even if you get a shared dock for 10. So I need to hear a lot of good, firm discussion about that. Since one of the Eastmans is here, I will tell you that one of the questions I wondered about and was hoping somebody could answer is, when did Darrell Eastman buy the beach property? How does that relate to when the other properties were bought by the LLCs? Was the easement there before Mr. Eastman bought the beach property? What's the easement say? Can we get a copy of the easement entered into the record? So and I have not looked at, and I'm not intimately familiar with the RCW and the WAC sections that Ms. Merchant quoted to us in her testimony. They may pertain to this situation. They may not. I don't know. They may be pertaining, she said it was DNR regulations, Department of Natural Resources. It may relate to something that's a wholly DNR issue and not Shoreline Management Act related. I don't know. I will look them up when I'm deliberating on the case. So, Mr. Ashley, you so far are the sworn applicant's representative. Would you like to have a Mr. James Eastman? Two males in that picture. I'm assuming James is the one nearer the camera. Would you like to have him speak on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, you could. Let me just quickly kind of explain it from my standpoint, and then James can correct me if I'm wrong and fill in the gaps. Is that right?
Okay, it's fine with me.
So basically, originally this was going to be a joint use dock for 10 homeowners. However, there were not 10 homes built at the time. So we downsized and we were talking about doing 7 homeowners. But again, there weren't 7 homes on the 7 lots. So it came out to, we actually had 4 lots with residential homes, and the city said we could do a joint use dock for the 4 homes. So that's kind of how we got it down to 4 homes, and by code, between 2 and 9 homeowners who are sharing a joint use lot, you can do up to 700 square feet. So that's kind of how we ended up designing that. So the easement agreements, there's an association being put together for the 4 homeowners. At some point down the road, there's going to be a total of 10 homes built on 10 lots that will end up being able to jointly use that lot. That's why that's why the dock it can hold up to 10 boat lifts physically. That's the way it's built. And hopefully down the road, we will end up having a joint use association that will be using that lot. So that's kind of how it happened. The particulars of what really happened, I'm not really sure. Mr. Eastman took care of that, so I'm sure he could fill in the blanks with that.
Yeah, sorry, we had some technical difficulties trying to get on here. And am I able to comment on that? Do I need to swear in?
Yes, you do need to be sworn in. I presume that's Mr. Eastman speaking?
Yeah, this is James Eastman.
Okay, would you raise your right hand, please? Swear or affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. For the
Yeah,
record,
so there's quite...
tell us your name, please. For the record.
James Eastman.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, there's quite a bit of history here. We modeled our dock after the dock code and did quite a bit of research, and the Burnsteads had done a development to the north, a few developments to the south with joint use agreements, and we owned 11 lots. And under the code, you have 11 lots, you can build a 700 square foot dock. So we applied for a 700 square foot dock. I modeled our agreements after the Burnsteads, and there was one to the south we modeled it after. We went in for the pre-app asking for a 700 square foot dock. And then after the pre-app, the city started to do their Sammamish SMP update. And during that update, they decided that docks really, the primary use for a lakefront property was for a single family residence. So we were told after we recorded that original agreement for for a 700 square foot dock for 10 lots, that the lots that did not have single family residents built on them already could not be used to qualify as a lot, which I could point out 1,000 examples in the past where that wasn't the case. Burnstead hasn't even built all their homes, and yet they still have their dock in, and there's no homes on them. And their dock went in 3 years ago. And at this time, they also were doing an SMP update, and they were considering requiring bathrooms on the lake lot. They were considering requiring parking down there, and they are also considering limiting the amount of users for the lake lot. So we didn't really know where this was going to go. All the recorded agreements, all the work we did for the original pre-app, it all kind of got blown up because of this new interpretation of the WAC code, which is you no longer qualify for a lot, even though you're R4 zoning, residential zoning, pay the residential taxes unless there's a house built. So we had that consideration, and then we had the code changing in front of our face. So rather than make it more complicated, we went to the bare minimum. We said, look, we have 4 houses built. What can we do with 4 houses? And all these houses, including the 10 or 11, they are all just uphill of the lake. So they're all within a quarter mile. They're all, you can walk to the lake from there. These aren't even up on the plateau. These are down near the parkway. So we're not talking far away. So what can we do under the current code? And for 4 lots, you can do a 700 square foot dock. So we applied for the bare minimum. I came up with a new joint use agreement for the bare minimum, which was the 4 houses that have been built. And then rather than record it, I didn't want to record it again because I had already recorded the prior one, and it got changed by the city after the pre-app meeting with the new code interpretation. So rather than record again, I was going to wait for the approval from the hearing examiner on the new agreement, repeal the old one, record the new one with final sign-off. That was kind of my thought process because I don't want to keep going to the city or to the county recorder's office and recording these joint use agreements if they're not fully approved by the hearing examiner.
What is your relationship to our applicant of record, Daryl Eastman?
He's my brother, and he can also swear in and comment on any questions you have for him. He's here next to me.
Approximately what year did, well, I guess it's Daryl that owns the beach lot. What year did Daryl buy the beach lot approximately? Do you know? Or do I need
I think 2018. It could be the summer of 17. The property record is correct on the assessor's report, whenever that one says. This will be our 3rd summer using it, so 2017. June 2017.
Okay. And the title report indicates that this easement apparently was recorded in 2005. Yeah,
so the easement, that was another thing where I took off the original recorded agreement that you see, the one that needs to be repealed. I took that off because during their code update, they were making all sorts of changes that I didn't know whether or not they would go through or not, like the bathrooms, the number of users, the parking. So rather than try to predict whether or not that would be approved as the new code, I just took them off. But I will, I do plan on them being able to use that dock, which will clear up the boat mooring. One of them moors their boat, and it kind of is interfering with Steve Goldblum's dock. So, but those 4 easement owners are just across the street from the parkway. So the reason they were not included on there was due to all the variability that was happening within the code. I didn't know if I was going to be vested under the old code due to the issue with the number of lot owners and the new interpretation. So once this dock goes in, those 4 easement owners, I have an agreement. Well, we'll enter into agreement saying that they will be able to use the dock. And if we need to, we can modify our joint use agreement to include them, but I'm not going to let them use the dock if this dock doesn't even get approved. So I don't know what you put first, the approval of the dock or the adding them to the joint use agreement. But if this dock gets approved, I will most likely we'll modify our joint use agreement to include them if that's okay with the city and the hearing examiner.
Would that then be ultimately 14 lots using?
Once it's all built out, yeah, it would be 14 lots. And the city's code is unclear of what even a beach club is. I know that came up earlier. Ultimately, it could be up to 14 lots. But the easement owners, they will only have one space at the dock for the 4 of them to use. We're paying for the engineering, the construction, we own everything. So the friendly agreement is, hey, look, we'll put the dock in, we'll clear up the boat parking on your end, you keep your exclusive use easement, and free of charge, you will be able to have this boat space to share between the 4 of you, and you'll be able to use the dock to refuel your boats, and it'll help keep that area clear down to the south in that easement, which it clears up next to Steve's property. So if this dock gets approved, that's what will happen. If it doesn't get approved, I guess we're back to ground zero. I don't know how it would go, but we're paying for everything. So really, until this gets built, we're not going to make any agreements that we can't keep by virtue of it not going in.
How do you see the mechanics working, not the physical mechanics, but the procedural mechanics, to go from 4 shared users to 14?
Well, you know what? I'm not sure, because in the code that we originally applied for, you could have a 700 square foot dock for over 10 users. So I think the mechanics that apply under that portion of the code would apply here, where it's over 10. So it's just a smaller dock, and we would modify our joint use agreement every time a house gets built. Right now, under the agreement and per what the city has said, we absolutely cannot have users associated with the lots that don't have houses built. And we're not going to argue that. That's not the history in the city, because I can point all over where there's beach lots being used by people that don't have houses built. But we'll agree to that portion of the code, and I think every time a house gets built, we modify the joint use agreement. And if you want to, as part of your decision, limit that to 14, that would be great. The 4 easement owners, they can use 1 if that's a concern, but I don't know what that high number is. I mean, per the code, it's 10 or more. So at what point does it become a beach club? And that was also a concern of adding those easement owners in, is if they're going to take up 4 spots, then maybe, and you're going to only allow 10, then maybe we need to relook at their 1 spot. So
Okay.
I don't really know how to interpret the code the way it's written.
Are you willing to obtain a copy of that 2005 easement and enter it into the record?
I have a copy.
Are you willing to enter that in the record as an exhibit?
Oh, sure. It's public record. It's recorded against our all of our parcels.
There's a fine line, I guess, between domain documents a hearing examiner should properly be able to look at
Oh, sure.
under,
Yeah, I'm willing to
under
send it
what's
over.
called official notice and where I ought to draw the line. And I'll grant you anything that's recorded in the auditor's office, or I guess in King County, folks call it the recorder's office, which frankly is a more logical name than the one most counties use. Granted, that's all public domain, but I think it would be better for something like this, an individual document, if you were willing to offer it instead of me going and trying
Yeah,
to find.
no, I'll send it over. Yeah, they have 40 feet use, and I've met with them all. I've told them we're putting the dock in. If they support it, if it gets approved, then they'll get one spot. I'm paying I'll engineer it, construct it, and they'll have somewhere to fuel their boats, to keep their boats, and we'll still honor their 40-foot easement, which is to stay off their shore. That's, the easement is only for our property. It doesn't go out into the water. So
Okay.
we already have that agreement with them,
here-
and it'll become a formalized agreement once this gets approved.
Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to assign exhibit number 27 to a copy of the 2005 easement. Are you familiar
Okay.
with Ms. Hacci's email address? Happen to know that? Have you ever communicated with her?
Yeah, I do. I email her quite a bit.
Okay. If you would email a copy of that easement to her,
Okay.
and then she can forward it to me. And we'll
Okay.
talk about leaving the record open here at the end of the hearing, but that's what you'll do, is you'll send it to her, not to me. Okay? Okay.
Great.
Would the staff, anybody on the staff want to talk to me about Beach Club or beach clubs vis-a-vis city code, what it says or doesn't say? Or do I need to ask individual pointed questions? I'd rather just ask an open-ended question and see where the answer goes. Ms. Beatty, you want to? Can we get her mic turned back on? There you go. Go ahead. You were sworn in before.
So the municipal code, bear with me, talks about Lake Sammamish. So I am looking at code section 25.07.050 for private docks, floats, mooring buoys, and watercraft lift regulations. In subsection 2 for Lake Sammamish, it states the following requirements shall apply to all new private docks, floats, and lifts on Lake Sammamish, including shared/joint use facilities and beach club facilities. And here in each individual, so the basic regulations that we use for most standard single residential docks, or each individual residential lot shall be allowed one residential dock, float, 2 boat lifts, 2 personal watercraft. Contiguous lots using shared joint use docks shall be allowed 1 additional boat lift. Subsection C, lots that provide shared/joint use for more than 9 residential homes shall be allowed 1 additional dock for service of existing legally established boat ramps and rails, provided the total area of overwater coverage does not exceed the maximum overwater coverage allowed by this section. That does not apply here. I have a question for Ms. Hacci. The SMP updates that were adopted and approved by City Council and subsequently by Ecology, have those been reflected yet in the online Sammamish Municipal Code?
I may have to defer to Melanie, and I see she's on here too, if she's sent them on. Melanie, are you available?
Yeah, I think that that is in the code. I mean, I always get confused between that ordinance and the other ordinance that we've been waiting to get back an okay from Department of Ecology. But I think, Avril, didn't you just send me the approval from DOA, from the SMP, DOE?
We got their approval on May 11th. I think that week I forwarded you their signed documentation saying that they approved our updates to the shoreline
And all
shoreline
code
regulations.
all code publishing was waiting for was to get those approval letters from DOE, which I then forwarded on to them. So I'm pretty sure it is in our code.
Okay. I just don't know how often they publish and refresh their webpage.
Right. They do it right away now. Like as soon as we give them approval, like they'll do, so I'll send them the code. They'll make the changes to the SMC. Then they send it to us for us to review. And once we review it, I give them the okay, they'll update it that day. So.
Okay.
I'm checking something on another screen. Just bear with me for a minute. Let me indicate for the record that Ms. Anderson, the lady who was just speaking, is the city clerk, and Ms. Hacci is the deputy city clerk. I did not swear either of them in because I felt they were just providing code reference information to Ms. Beatty. This is what I want to find. Okay. I wanted to confirm before I opened my mouth and put my foot in it. Sammamish does have a vesting ordinance, and Sammamish's vesting code says that applications for type 1, 2, 3, and 4 applications vest on the date that a complete application is filed. This is a type 4 application. Therefore, it is vested to the regulations that existed on October 16th, 2019. And all of the last 5-minute discussion about new pending shoreline regulations is immaterial. I could not use new regulations even if they had been approved by ecology.
That is correct. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Examiner. I thought you had a question regarding adding future users to the share use doc. Yeah. So for future expansion of or intensification of the use, one of the modifications that was adopted in the new regulations is a definition of a private beach park use, which is defined as privately owned shoreline properties used by an owner or an ownership or membership group for water-oriented recreational activities that are not associated with or subordinate to residential use, with associated facilities necessary for access, active use of shorelands, and allowances for private docks, floats, and moors. And this new use is a conditional use within the shoreline jurisdiction. So in the future, should anyone wish to propose a private beach park use, it would require a shoreline conditional use permit.
And do these proposed revision changes provide any specific guidance for a private beach park, similar to the guidance that's in the code now for docks and whatnot?
They would have to meet the findings for a conditional use.
Okay.
there is additional language that lots providing private beach park use shall be allowed an additional boat lift and one additional personal watercraft. Maximum overwater coverage shall not exceed 480 square feet.
Okay, so there's something in there.
Yes.
If I'm looking at the municipal code online version, so I'm assuming that I'm not seeing these new things. In 25-07-050-2, subsection A says that each individual residential lot on Lake Sammamish is one residential dock, one float, 2 boat lifts, and 2 personal watercraft lifts. All of the 2 boat lifts in lieu of the 2 boat lifts and 2 personal watercraft lifts, 4 personal watercraft lifts may be permitted. So it's still a limit of 4 lifts, 3 boat, 2 personal watercraft, or 4 personal watercraft. Then subsection B says contiguous lots. None of these lots are contiguous. So even if you thought that contiguous didn't mean contiguous to the shore, none of these lots are contiguous, at least not the 4 that are displayed on Exhibit 25. Contiguous lots using shared use docks are allowed 1 additional boat lift and 1 additional personal watercraft lift, or 2 additional personal watercraft lifts, in addition to the allowances noted above for an individual lot. So if we've got a contiguous lot, two contiguous lots with a shared use dock, it seems to me that the code says you can have 3 boat lifts, and 3 watercraft lifts, or 4 watercraft lifts in addition to. So that doesn't apply anyway, because these aren't contiguous lots. We go to lots that provide shared joint use for more than 9 residential homes. Shall be allowed 1 additional dock. Now, that seems to suggest that if you're providing shared joint use for, I guess it would be more than 2 but less than 9 properties, you only get what's allowed up above. But if you get to 9 residential homes, then you can put an additional dock to service existing legally established launch ramps and rails. Well, we don't have any established launch ramps and rails on this property anyway. So arguably, you don't get an extra dock because you're not servicing an established ramp or rail. And then provided that the total overwater coverage does not exceed the maximum overwater coverage allowed by this section. Then when we go to subsection D, 480 square feet is the limit for a dock serving 1 lot. 700 square feet is the limit for a dock serving 2 to 9 lots. And 1,000 square feet for private residential docks serving more than 9 lots in a joint use agreement. I don't know what the city has done with all of your dock rules in this new shoreline update that apparently Ecology has approved or is in the process of. But suffice it to say, it might be nice if this whole section were looked at again, because it's not terribly clear. They're assuming they can get 10 boat lifts. I don't see anywhere that it says they can get 10 boat lifts.
Right, which is why,
I don't see anything that says you get one additional boat lift for every additional lot that you manage to put into your collection. I just don't see it in the code.
mhm.
Because it doesn't give you any special exceptions for more than 2 and up to 9. B is contiguous lots using shared use dock can have an additional boat lift and an additional watercraft lift. Now, even if you said that that meant contiguous side by side, you could have 8 contiguous lots. That doesn't say, the way that's written, that does not say you can have 8 boat lifts. It says you can have 1 more. And when you get to 9, all it says is that you can have a second dock if it's going to service an established existing boat rail or boat launch. You don't even get the second dock with 9 lots shared unless you're doing it to service an existing boat launch. That's the way it's written. I didn't write this stuff. I always like to point that out to people. All I do is read the words as written and try to understand them and apply them. Whether it's a good policy or a bad policy, that's up to somebody else to decide. That's not what my responsibility or my authority is.
Mhm.
Let me also say, I find this very interesting that the city seems to think that I'm approving a shared boat launch for 4 lots to use. Mr. Eastman seems to think that all he's going to have to do after I approve this thing is change his joint use agreement every time he gets a house built on one of the other 6 lots. Which means really I'm looking at a shared boat launch or boat dock for 10 lots. And then if you throw the easement in, it's 14. And that's not what the city staff seems to think that it's asking me or that it's recommending approval of. I don't like to be the persnickety guy in the project, but I refuse to issue a decision that is so vague that you can jump from 4 to 14 without going through any review process. And I've presumed that we're only doing 4, and all of a sudden magically, gee, there's all these other people. And Mr. Eastman, let me also indicate, Ms. Merchant, in her testimony, said that she walked to the furthest of the 4 lots and it took her 55 minutes to get there. And she said it was a half a mile away. So just so, because I think that occurred before you joined the hearing. So I wanted you to know that that was her testimony. Your testimony is that they're all within a quarter of a mile and it's all easy to get there. I'll be honest, I find it hard to believe that nobody's going to want to drive a car to go to this site. When I look at where these things are, I find it very hard to believe that I'm supposed to go through this process with the blinders on and pretend that nobody's going to want to drive a car to get to this shared use facility. And when I visited the site, I foolishly, because I'd looked at Google Earth to see where it was and try and get some landmarks so I'd know where to make the turn. I've looked at enough sites along that road that I know if you don't have a landmark, it can be hard to find it and you're driven right by before you get there. when I found the location, I thought there was going to be a little driveway that I could drive down. And there was no way I was going to try and drive my Subaru down that two little tracks that exist between the opening and the guardrail. I'm not sure that this has all been very well thought out, or I'm not sure that it's been fully disclosed to the city what's really going to be going on here. And we can go ahead and we'll take the rebuttal testimony, and I can close the hearing. We're going to leave it open at least for Eastman to submit a copy of the easement, and then I can write a decision and do the best I can with what we've got. Other than that, I don't have anything good to suggest. I don't have any other questions because all the ones I had related to this thing that we've all spent the last quite a bit of time talking about. So let's move to the rebuttal phase. And we will begin rebuttal with the applicant. I don't know whether that would be you, Mr. Ashley, or you, Mr. Eastman. Mr. Eastman has his mic on first, so I'll recognize James Eastman.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to just go to the code the way it's written. If you look, there's a code table that clearly specifies what is allowed under the code, and it says 9 lot owners or more. So I went to the city and I said, look, we own 11 lots. We want 1,000 square foot dock, just like all these other people that have gotten them. And they said, okay, you need a joint use agreement. All our lots are within a quarter mile of the beach. So under the code, conceivably up until that point, you're allowed 1,000 square feet. I went to them with the lot owners. I went to them with the easement issue. I went and recorded the agreement per the code, per the table, not trying to hide anything. And that was out, and we had the pre-app. And then after the pre-app, that's when they were doing their new interpretation of the SMP and changing the code. And they started to make changes based on what really defines a lot owner. And the key word is residences, residential use. And Avril, when she read you the definition of a beach club, it says not associated with residential use. So right now, if we were to approve this and we added those lots back into the agreement that didn't have houses built, well, that's not residential use, and we would be in clear violation of the code, because that is what makes a beach club, is not having a residence built. So we're not asking for that right now. And under the Sammamish code, as long as you have residential use, you're allowed to not be a beach club. And under the code we're vested in, you're allowed to have over 10 lots with houses on them, even 14. I don't know what the cutoff number is. Maybe that's something that you can make in your determination. But as long as there's residential use, under their current code, you qualify to not be considered a beach club. So I'm just trying to do it per the code, the way it was written. And we took all those lots off the agreement, and we took them off the application because we were instructed they didn't have residential use. And those lots, nobody will use the dock unless there's residential use per the city code. So that kind of addresses that. With the parking, we are at the very bottom of a driveway that feeds into our lot. And we have probably 2 lot owners on the north and 2 on the south that drive across not only King County easement, but a lot of them actually drive right into our property. And we've never said anything about it. And I have pictures to prove it. of 10 cars parked to the south of us. I have a photo showing that, and some of them, they drive right across our property to do it. So we're okay with some conditions limiting our parking, but in all fairness, this hearing isn't going to limit any of the parking to the people from the north or from the south from loading their beaches up with cars, and that affects us because the driveway goes right into our property and to the north and to the south. So, if these complaints are being made, we would propose that, the same conditions apply to them with parking. But if you want to make a determination as part of your conditions that no parking is allowed on our property, we're okay with that. But we would also, in the future, like the parking to be limited on the north and south if they're a public hearing, because I have photos and proof of parking already being an issue for their properties. And they've, one of them got their dock approved, and the other one, it's half broken down. I don't know if they'll have to be back there for a new dock, but I have clear photos showing cars that have driven across our property to park, and also loading up the right-of-way in front of our property with at least 6 cars. Other than that, I just, the key word here is residential use. The code allows over 10 lots. So, if you want to make a condition as part of your hearing examiner conditions that we can be no more than 14 lots can ever use this. Not lots, but residential houses can never use this lot for use. We're okay with that. The 4 is kind of tricky because they're only going to be able to use that if this dock gets approved. So I don't know what comes first, promising them they can use it and then not getting it approved and still having that commitment, or getting it approved and then allowing them to use it. And my thought pattern was they have 4 houses built. The code allows 10 or more users. As long as there's a residential house, you're not a beach club. So I could add them later, and then I could add the other ones in as houses get built, but not until then. So I guess that's kind of where we stand and what we've been told from when we went in here in the first place under the code, and following what everyone else has done here in Sammamish, which is Steve Goldblum. You have one of your users has a lot that's a recreational lot that uses your beach property. You guys aren't a beach club. You just got approved as a joint use lot. So it's the same scenario. We can't follow that because the city made a new determination that it has to have residential use. So we're actually going in under a stricter code interpretation than everybody that's gone before us.
You say your situation's the same as Mr. Goldblum's.
Well, Mr. Goldblum has a lot that uses, the guy's name is Dylan, and behind Dylan's house, there's a vacant lot that has never had a house built on it. The owner of that vacant lot uses the Goldblum's dock. So under the beach code interpretation of a beach club, the owner of that lot doesn't have a residence built upon their vacant lot because there's no residence. So technically, under the beach club interpretation that the city is now choosing to enforce, the owner of that lot is using the beach property and doesn't have a house built. So therefore, it's a beach club. That's the new interpretation. That's why I can't include my 6 vacant lots as part of using this dock, because the the interpretation the city is choosing to give is if the vacant lot doesn't have a residence actually built on it, then it cannot be part of these joint use agreements. It doesn't qualify, and it's a beach club.
Thank you. Mr. Ashley, you've still got your
Yes, sir.
mic on. Did you want to add something in rebuttal?
Yeah, I guess basically this particular structure is a 699 square foot structure, which is allowed by code for 2 to 9 homeowners or 2 to 9 residential lots. There's 4 residential lots that are actually attached to it right now. So the structure itself meets the code. I've designed it to have 2 boat lifts, to permit 2 boat lifts right now. 2 boat lifts do meet the code, so they could be approved for the code. The only reason I specifically said that the structure itself was designed to accommodate up to 10 boat lifts is because the city, with the vagueness of how many boat lifts could be at a joint use dock that you've already read to us, the city has said that they will allow the number of boat lifts that a dock is designed to accommodate. So that's the only reason I specifically said that it's designed to accommodate up to 10, so that down the road they could potentially allow us to put more boat lifts on there. So whether or not that's correct, but that's what they've been doing, and that's why I said 10 boat lifts. But the reality is right now it's being permitted for 699 square feet and 2 boat lifts, which clearly meets the code.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody on the city wish to offer any rebuttal testimony? Mr. Singh or Ms. Beatty?
Staff has no further comments.
Nothing further. Okay, thank you. Mr. Goldblum, you had your hand up a minute ago, I think indicating that you wanted to offer rebuttal. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. All right. And just James Eastman, you missed us earlier, so I'm under oath and just continuing from before. I want to clear up a few things. There may be some confusion. Some things just maybe some misinformation, some confusion. We'll just get them, and then I'll get to the point. One, I'm Steve Goldblum. I own a property, 19635 Northeast 33rd, that in my title of my property, there's a 1/6 undivided interest to property that 6 homeowners have the same 1/6 undivided interest inside their own individual title. So the lots that's in back of the Amote family, Dylan and Gela Amote, which Mr. Eastman had just referred to, the Amotes actually bought that lot from me and a former neighbor, Luca Baroni. That lot, I can under oath say that lot has a 1/6 undivided interest on the property, and as part of the TJ Square Association, has its own right. So we're not the same as a beach club. We're 6 individual homes. We own 6 individual homes and ourselves. We're part of TJ Square Association, and the association has gotten a dock built. As I informed the court earlier, even though there are 6 homes, we were prevented from having each of the 6 homes having their own space in the dock due to limitations of dock size to respect Mr. Eastman's property and to respect the property on the right of us. So in respecting both properties, we built a dock that was big enough for 4 lifts, and 2 homes, in a sense, we had to work it out among the 6 of us how it was going to work, and we did. That's one. So I'm TJ's. I'm also speaking because I'm president of the association, and I'm here on behalf of my lot and the other members of the association, the 4 dock owners, the 4 people who will have applications. I want to make sure there's no conflict. We want 4 lifts at our dock, and we have 1 in there now, and we have to go through the appropriate approval process to get those lifts. So I want that on the record. And not 6 lifts, 4, even though I have 6 homes. Next thing is I want to bring up that we're speaking about having homes within a quarter of a mile of the property. Well, Dwayne Baker owned the property. He lived away from. He actually lived in the TJ Square neighborhood. Sold his home Amotes actually owned that home that he lived in one time. He owned the lot in the back of the house that was being referred to, and it was set up to each of the homes having a lot. The point that I'm making is, when Mr. Eastman bought the property, and we welcome him as a neighbor, one nice thing he continues to do is, there's 4 property owners that have no ownership of any beachfront. It's been stated they have an easement to get through to the water, and that's how we understand it. And in addition to the Eastman's cousins last week, who came and used our dock to pick up their kids, in addition to Brad, Roger, we let use, or the other the 4 that we let use our dock, or when we told them, when we get approved for dock, you can load, you can fuel, you can do that stuff. We're friendly neighbors. We're evidence year to date has already happened, even with the Eastman family, among others. In terms of the cars coming down that go to the north, we have an easement to come down that road. Since the Eastmans have joined us, as much as the cars that are there are, in addition to Mr. Eastman, who has his own property, he has 3 or 4 relatives or friends that he shares the use of that dock, the actual beachfront with. And so there's more cars are coming down there than before. So the road that the people to the south of them go through, they have to drive over their property to get to it. I don't know what easement they have. I believe they have the same easement as we have, and the same one we give to our neighbors who are north of us, who can go across our land to get to their place. So this driving across the property stuff, we all have to do that to get to each other's stuff, and we all do it to drop stuff off. As far as parking goes, I can't speak to anybody else's parking. I know we have policies at TJ Square on our 60 feet that if there's more than 1 car down there, all the cars go up. We have 1 car as soon as there's a second one, because we don't want to go on anybody's beach. And we go up onto our private road and park there. There is no space on the East Lake Sammamish. They can park. I'll let the people from East Eagle Shores speak to the parking. They brought that up. I'm going to move on to my one point. The 4 people who are giving the easement, that are giving the 1 space on the dock, it seems like those houses I'm aware of that are a quarter of a mile away, or a small walk away. They're further than my house, but they're a small walk away. And they have an easement to go across. And any of these other houses, I don't really understand the address for any one house connected to that property and how close it is. Any one house. Then if there is 1 house, what's the second house that's close? And if there are 2 houses, what's the third house that's close? Because if the rule is that you can own a house in Wyoming and have a shared space on the property and have a dock, that's fine. If you can have, but if you have to be in Sammamish near the shore, I don't know if there's any evidence of any houses that are near the shore. And I know for the 6 houses that are physically here that we've been waiting 10 years for, we only going to get 4, and because of size. And I'm all in for the Eastmans getting a dock that James and I had discussed, and originally having 6 spaces, and he was going to take care of the 4 people. I don't know when the project jumped to 10 and 14. I only got on the call because it was going to be 8. This is first time hearing about 14 or 10. And 8 is, I started off in the beginning, there's too many boats down there. And I was told, probably incorrectly, I don't know, that the 8 were actually for Airbnb type rentals. That may or may not be true. So I'll take Mr. Easton, he has to speak. He wasn't here. I would have preferred to hear it from him, because I believe him if he's going to say it. And at the end of the day, as neighborly people, I believe we feel comfortable with the Eastmans getting, with that six boats over there with some controls that make sense, and we can fit our 4 lifts. The people from Eagle Shores can get their things. The people between Eagle Shores and Eastmans fix their dock. You just have to be friendly and get along. But having 14 different things makes it into a circus down there. There's not enough. It changes everything. It's like a beach club. It's a commercial venture. It's a commercial development venture. And if it's allowed, well, okay, then it's allowed. I didn't know that was allowed. I guess there's also one of our members of our association has joined. They couldn't get on technically. I don't know if they have anything to say. I think Dylan Amotes on the line is one of the homeowners. I know he texted me, said he couldn't get on. He may have joined by call. But I really do think there's some confusion on the 4 homes that have the easement and any other homes. I don't think there are any other homes that are close by to the shore. I don't know, but I'd like to have somebody under oath say, here's my address. And it's a quarter of a mile away from the shore, and here's the second address. I'd love to hear that under oath. I don't know where these places are, and I've been living here since 2009. I'd love to hear it. It's fine where the 4 houses are.
Thank you, Mr. Goldblum. Ms. Merchant.
Yes, I'm going to speak up my phone. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say the difference between the Burnstead dock and the Burnstead docks, if you will, as well as TJ Square, is they are actually considered boating facilities, and their ownership. For example, I have one of the SSCPs for the Burnstead property, SSCP 2015-00274. And as it reads, it says construction of one 690 square foot graded surface shared use boating facility as defined in SMC 25.02.010, section 13, allowed under SMC 25.07.010. The dock facility is owned and shared by 6 lots within a common subdivision located east of East Lake Sammamish Parkway Northeast. The proposed dock width is 4 feet, 80 feet long, and 6 by 21 Ls. The proposal meets the City of Sammamish Shoreline Master Program shared dock dimensions standards of SMC 25.07.050 and is supported by a shoreline planting mitigation plan. The boating facility is for the use only and does not allow, the boating facility is for owner use only and does not allow rented moorage. This is the same actually for both of the Burnstead docks, and it does read the same also for TJ Square. The ownership and the use are actually tied to the dock. It's not open to being placed on different homes. They're all within a common subdivision, and that's why it's a boating facility. The definition of the beach club, by the way, it's under SMC chapter 25.02, section number 8. Give me 1 second, I'll open it on my thing and I can read you the definition. This is a beach club, means a private waterfront lot owned in common by 2 or more individuals/entities for the purpose of providing shared recreational beach access for the exclusive use of the property owners. You would have to be an owner in order to do that. The other properties they have listed, the same thing. The use is actually tied to the ownership, and that's the difference is that it's not a joint use agreement that can move from house to house. The actual resident is bound with the ownership and the use of the dock, and that's how it was approved. So even under the current code, if it was a beach club, only the owners would be able to use it. So it would have to be an owner, not just anybody. And that's what, as it reads under the Sammamish Municipal Code, under the current code right now. And so, it's not a boating, in order to be a boating facility, it would have to be upland, 5 or more upland contiguous lot owners. And that's why it's under the current code, they wouldn't qualify as a boating facility because of the fact that they are not upland contiguous lot owners. And so they would not meet the terms for a boating facility, and the use that they're describing also does not meet the terms of a beach club. And the issue of the park, it was deferred to me, the problem really isn't no parking on the street. Even for our neighbors, whenever their friends come, just to use the dock, joint use dock that we've had actually since 2005 is when our dock was approved. Right now, the traffic is so heavy on East Lake Sammamish, I won't even walk on the side to walk my dog. I'll walk down to the beach, I'll walk across the street, but I would not even walk to 33rd, over the 33rd place because the traffic's so bad. The parking is so limited that we actually limit our owners only to 2 cars to be parked on the time, and the rest has to be parked. They have to park up in our actual subdivision for the owners of the beach parcel. And so it is actually the use of the dock and the ownership of the dock is tied to the actual subdivision, just as is the case with the Burnstead dock and the same thing with TJ Square. It's tied to the use of the subdivision.
Thank you very much.
And that's the difference.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't see any other members of the public on the screen. So we come now to the closing arguments. And
There is another member of the public on the screen. You just can't see their face. I don't know if they can hear or not. If they wanted to speak, Moat's there.
who, Mr. Goldblum, who?
Dylan and
He's not on
and
it.
Gala,
He's not
Moat.
on it.
He's not on the call.
Cynthia
Okay.
Tawana is a city employee. Kelly is a city. I think Kelly's. You're down here twice. I'm not quite sure why, Ms. Hilda.
Yes, I'm having some issues with my desktop, so I had to dial in with my phone. I did not want to disrupt any recording, so that's why I'm listed twice.
That's
Being
fine.
new to this.
And then GWA's Mr. Ashley. Now there was a phone call 6 and a 7 that were here for a while, but then they disappeared. Mr. Eastman, what are you trying to signal here? Turn your mic on.
Yeah, it's one of the individuals that lives in our houses. He has 3 sons. He uses a beach lot. He's one of the residents, and he can speak to how far we are from the beach lot. This is the furthest house on that exhibit. And by the way, there is an exhibit showing the locations of the 4 residences. So I'll just let him speak real quick. If you can unmute him to who he is, how long he's lived here. We're not Airbnb tenants.
Who is he?
His
Where
name
is
is
he?
Rick Martin. He's
Excuse me,
here.
Mr. Eastman. Where is he?
He's here with me.
I called in on the public line, so I'm not on the Zoom call. I'm on my phone.
Mr. Hearing
Can you hear me?
Examiner, I
Yeah.
do believe he's identified as caller 6.
And I don't have a
I've been
caller
on.
screen anymore. But
I've been on the whole time. Well, I've been on since for the last hour. I've been on.
That's okay. Raise your right hand wherever you are. You
Okay,
swear-
my hand is raised.
Let me give you the
Yeah.
oath before you start speaking. You
Okay.
swear to affirm that the testimony you'll be offering in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
And please tell us your name and how to spell it.
Rick Martin. MARICK MARTIN.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Okay, now, since you're going to be testifying as one of the owners, what's your street address?
19725 Northeast 42nd Way.
Okay, on my map, it just says 1972 Northeast 42nd Way, but you're at the corner of some little street, which I can't read, and 42nd Way, right? You're off
Correct.
106th Avenue Northeast.
Right.
Okay, I see you. I'm looking at Exhibit 25, one of the pages in Exhibit 25, which I can show the audience. I believe he's talking about that one right there. Okay, go ahead and testify, please.
Okay, so I think the points I would like to make is the amount of distance that it would take, which my understanding is that this house is probably the furthest one away from the other houses. And if I were to take the road that goes directly down to the lake, I mean, I could get there. It's walking distance. I've never walked it exactly. I've driven it, and it just takes a couple minutes. It's literally definitely within a half mile, quarter mile. I'm not sure the exact distance. I haven't done it, but I could see the lake. It's straight down the street. So we're the furthest one away, and we could get there in minutes. And the other thing I would like to make a point about is that we've rented here for 2.5 years. So, we've been at this property for a while. I have 3 sons. It's my wife and I. We're local business owners, and we would love the opportunity to use a dock down there. My sons fish. We do all the type of water sports, and we would love that opportunity. So those are the 2 main points, and I'm happy to answer any other questions. that there are.
I don't have any. Thank you very much. Does that conclude the rebuttal then? Okay, I'm going to take that as a yes. Does this, and the city has already indicated you don't have any closing comments, is that right? We'll come to you in a minute, Mr. Eastman. Be patient. The applicant speaks last. Does the city wish to offer any closing comments? Silence is golden. It means the city does not. Mr. Eastman, does the applicant wish to offer any closing comments?
Yes.
Proceed with the-
It kind of goes into the direction we went into this, and that is regarding the city's interpretation of the code. If you look at all of our land together, I propose creating an HOA and having it going the subdivision route. The guidance we are given as part of the city after our pre-application conference was from the WAC, from the Washington legal code, basically saying that primary use of a waterfront property is for residential use, and regardless if I had a house, if I had a lot included on our joint use agreement, such as the one lot that was included as part of the Goldblums, just having that one lot included without a residence makes it for non-residential use, and it would disqualify me under the city code. So we completely abandoned that route. One of the speakers said the upland contiguous lot, that she's pulling that from the description of the Burnstead project. She's not actually pulling that from the city code. Nowhere in the city code does it say upland contiguous, and there could be an argument made that most of my lots are actually upland contiguous. So if that were the case, I would have included most of them as part of the original application here. So I just want to key in on the direction that we've been led by the city and the way their current code reads, and also the Washington legislative code, which is the primary use of a beach lot is for residential use. And I will not ever, if we are going to build eventually on those other lots, then it'll be residential use. And unfortunately, there's no clarity in the code that says what is the upper limit of residences that can use a beach lot. There's a clear provision. It says over 9. So we know it can go over 9. The definition of a beach club is, which is for non-residential use, which means if there's no house built. That's why we took them off our goes. As you can hear from the other neighbors, I mean, there's quite a bit of parking being done down there. We're open. I mean, hearing examiner, if you want to make a condition that we don't park down there, we would be okay with that. But it's kind of a little bit of a thorn in our side because everyone else parks down there, and we're talking the King County right-of-way, which is one thing, which I have no control of. We don't own that property. They park there, but some of them actually drive across our private property, which there's no easement for to get to their lots. So, but we've been friendly about it. But I mean, parking, if you want to put in your conditions that we're never to park there, that wouldn't hurt our feelings at all. We're close enough, but it would be nice if all of us neighbors could kind of live by the same rules if that's the case. Other than that, we've tried to go in per what the code says, and that's why this whole thing has changed from the original application. Is because we actually modeled it after the Burnstead subdivision. Even if we were to create a subdivision or an HOA, because there was no houses built, the city's latest interpretation of the Washington legislative code was they cannot be included. So that's why they've been taken off. That's why we've minimized our application to the 4. And if this gets approved, we will add the 4 easement owners for one boat slip.
You're repeating a lot of what you've already said.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, and as
Could
we
I
build
ask you a
houses, we'll also add them.
May I ask you a question?
Sure.
It occurred to me as you were talking about the people parking and coming down there that you say have no easement. When I went to visit the site, I drove down East Lake Sammamish Parkway, probably a couple hundred feet south of the little entrance drive that you would take to get to your piece of property. And I parked there because there was a little more space between the guardrail and the edge of the pavement. And I walked down to right where I parked, there was another little trail that went down. And so I walked down that trail onto the East Lake Sammamish Trail. And then I walked back up the East Lake Sammamish Trail a couple of hundred feet so that I was standing, looking straight out at the lake over your piece of property, the grassy field.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed to me as I was standing there that the trail, the water edge of the trail was supported on a retaining wall.
Mm-hmm.
There was a straight, if I looked over and looked down, I'd look right down a wall to the ground. Is that?
Yeah, so that's all King County right away. I don't control that. There's plenty of room for them to.
Here's my question. Do you know how far the King County Trail right-of-way extends towards the lake from the base of that wall?
I do, and it's enough for a car for the south. Easy. They park down there all the time in the right-of-way. The problem is that when it gets full, they go around their cars and they go into our property on the south. On Steve's property, you could probably get a car and stay in the right-of-way, but they would scratch their cars in blackberries if they were to do that. So they kind of jet out into our property to avoid the blackberries. So they may or may not be able to get their car.
Okay, hold on. You would say that it's what, 10 feet from the base of the retaining wall? 15
Okay,
feet?
so going south, I would say it's a good, there's plenty of room, maybe 20 feet. I mean, you could easily drive a car south.
Okay.
But going north, it's another issue. Going north, there's plenty of right of way, but it's sloped, so it's not usable right away.
Okay. Thank you. Any last thoughts? I just don't want you to repeat your testimony like you were starting to.
No, we're open to conditions. We're just trying to do this the right way, and we don't quite know how because these houses haven't been built and there's no precedent because the city has changed their interpretation of the code as far as if the houses aren't built, then so yeah, we're open to your conditions as far as this goes.
Thank you. All right, then. This will conclude our hearing, but before adjourning, we do have the issue of setting up a mechanism by which that easement can be submitted and get officially into the record. In order to preserve due process, I need to let the parties have an opportunity to respond to that easement after they've had a chance to see it. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to leave the hearing record open. Calendar over here. Through 5 p.m. on June 8th for Mr. Eastman to get that easement and get it emailed to Ms. Hacci. That may seem like a long time, but I've had experiences where people promise me they can get something in the next day and they don't. And then it's too late because we've set a limit. And so I'd rather give you more time than not enough time. So the record will remain open through June 8th for that to occur. Then You are to mail, I already given you the address, but I'll say it again for the record. I want you to mail that easement to LHACHEY@sammamish.us. That's Ms. Hacci's business email address. The email from you has to actually be received by 5 p.m. on June 8th. Ms. Hacci will then mark it with the exhibit number. I said it would be exhibit number 27, so she will mark it with that. Will you be able to post it to the city's website somehow or other associated with this case?
Yes, I'll work with maybe Avril and get that posted.
Okay, very good. So she will do that, and then she will email a copy of it to me. Then any attendee at our hearing today may submit comments to Ms. Hacci via email by 5 p.m. June 15th, 7 days later. So you got 7 days to look at it and decide if you want to submit comments. And that can be city staff. It could be Ms. Merchant, could be any of the other folks who have participated. Ms. Hacci will, again, she will assign exhibit numbers. The next sequential numbers available would be 28 and so on. And she will then scan them and email them to me. And on the 15th of June is when the record will close and my 10-day decision-making period starts. Let's see. Does everybody understand that? Okay. And remember, if you want to be a party of record, email your contact information to Ms. Hacci. Given the situation with COVID and what have you, I am sure that the city would far prefer that you ask to be an email party of record and take your copy of the decision via email. And so let her know that that's the way you'd like to do it if you're willing to do so. All right, it is 12:25 p.m. Our hearing stands adjourned, subject to the post-hearing submittal procedure just described. And I'm going to see if I can there it is. I'm going to click down here to leave the hearing, and the rest of you can do likewise. Have a good day and a good weekend. Stay safe.
Thank you.